Okay, so I'm live and I'm recording. Okay, so like I said, so guys, we're watching the workers' comp video that's posted in Caduceus. So if you've watched the video, you saw the young lady that was hurting herself, or she hurt herself by lifting, and we were discussing that there are ways that she could have prevented that and that she shouldn't have done it. But the insurance company is going to try to fight her injury to say that very same thing. That she could have prevented it. She didn't have to live by herself. She could have asked for help. She could have asked him. She could have done a lot of things. But that's the insurance job, is to refute the claim. So this individual right here, when they say that you have to find another way to do your job, they have to give, your workplace has to give you another job essentially. So if he does a lot of typing right now, he can't do that because his wrist hurts, his hand hurts, he has a brace on. So they're going to have to find something that's going to be as equally for him for him able to do. So they have to provide a rehabilitative job for his position. Now there are some jobs that do not have light duty or they do not have an alternative job. So you have to take the patient off of work because then at that point there's nothing for them to do and they can't go to work at that point. Does that all make sense? And see, she just said that there's no other work here to do.
You should report your injury right away. If your injury develops gradually, you should report it as soon as you learn it was caused by your job. This helps avoid possible problems with your request for benefits and helps you get the medical care you need.
To request workers' compensation benefits, you must file a claim form. This should be done right away to avoid possible problems with your request for benefits. Your employer must give you this form within one working day after learning about your injury. Read the back of the claim form for important information about benefits. Fill out the top half of the claim form, sign it, and give it to your employer. This is called filing the claim form.
They usually give it to you the same day. Not within one day. It's after it's happened, you get a form, you fill it out, and they'll determine if you are able to stay at work or not. Because if your injury is so severe, like that gentleman, he had to go to the emergency room right away, and he's not expected to come back to school or to work. But in my case, when I failed last year, we had a student outside my classroom and she passed out. Well, instead of me actually administering any type of medical treatment to her, I had to go get the nurse because I'm not a registered medical personnel here on campus. Yes, I may be, a medical personnel, but I'm not registered to touch anyone here on campus. So I did the next best thing was to run and go get the nurse. Because what you all don't know is that there's a chain of command here on campus. You have to contact the nurse, then an AP, and they contact emergency services, not a teacher and not a student. No, as you are. But part of it too is to cut down on the confusion. But when I ran to go and get the nurse right here, at the staircase across from Mr. Redden, I bust my tail and it hurt. But I got up and I kept running to go get the nurse because I knew we had a student. But by the time we finished with all of that, the room around campus was Dr. Smith fell down the stairs. Dr. Smith rolled down the stairs and she fell. And Dr. Smith, what? I fell and I got up. If I fell and rolled down the stairs, I wouldn't be here. But they made me file a workers' comp claim because I did fall at work. They did send me to the nurse. She gave me my workers' comp claim or my paperwork. I had to fill it out. She faxed it over to the injury assessment officers across the street at HR, and that's when the process began. They told me what doctor I could see. That's the other thing with workers' comp. It's almost like insurance. Sorry, y'all listening. It's almost like insurance, just like Blue Cross Blue Shield. If you have an in network, out of network, a par or non par provider. Par is in network, non par is out of network. If you are a participating provider for a workers' comp insurance, then yes, you could go to them. But if they're not in network with your job's insurance program, you cannot go to them. Did I lose you? Okay.
If you don't understand the form, get someone to help you. Your employer must fill out the bottom half, sign it, and give it to a claims administrator to get your claim started. Your employer must also give you a copy of the completed form.
Here's the workers' compensation. If you have any questions, I got the form from my supervisor. She answered all our questions, gave you an outlet.
Very interesting. You can receive lunch at this time whenever these
Trying to meet the deadline, you weren't able to sign.
Now this is an unfortunate
Sometimes,
situation
first line supervisor.
because supervisors can be non-supportive and they will expect you to complete your task or your job regardless of you being heard or not.
Is aware of all the procedures. If your supervisor is unfamiliar with workers' comp, ask other people, management. Get medical care. Your treating doctor plays an important role in helping you recover and return to work. Your treating doctor decides what type of medical care you'll get for your injury or illness. Your treating doctor can help identify the kinds of work you can live safely while recovering. If you are off work, your treating doctor determines when you can return to work. Your treating doctor writes and sends medical reports to other people in the workers' compensation system. These reports will affect the benefits you receive.
doctors have expertise in different areas, you should be seen by a doctor who knows how to treat the type of injury you have. It's also important that your doctor understands the relationship between your job and your injury.
Tell your doctor about your physical symptoms and other problems. Doctors should know these findings in the medical record. Also describe the job you do, as well as the equipment and substances you work with. This will help your doctor determine whether your work causes another condition. If you want to choose who you
The other thing that's very important when you go to or when you send a patient to the doctor that's getting treated for a work injury, that the patient explain exactly what happened. How did they get hurt? If that is not put in the report, then it is not considered a workers' comp claim because that means you're just going on your own and that you're hurt. But we need to know detail by detail what happened, how did you get hurt, and what body parts did you hurt? Because if that's left off, then it's not claimed, and that's you can't treat it. So if I go and say, well, I hurt my back, my left arm, and my right shoulder, and all they write down is my low back, what are they going to treat? They just treat my low back because that's all they wrote down. They didn't put anything about my shoulder or my arm. So you need to make sure that when you, as a billing and coding specialist, that if you're going through the notes and you compare what the doctor wrote versus what the patient said, you might want to bring it to the doctor's attention. Hey, doc, they said left arm, right shoulder. You didn't put that in the notes. And they have to go back and add it. Because if not, again, those places cannot be treated if it's not in the report or if it's not billed out correctly. Choose the doctor who will treat you. You want to notify the employer that you were injured. Name your personal physician in writing. You won't go to your regular doctor. You will not go to your primary care physician because it is not a regular injury. It's something that happened at work. So you have to go to the designated doctor by your work insurance. Okay, so the steps are get medical care, report the injury. They still talking. That's why I didn't watch the whole thing. Okay, we just gonna go. Here we go. Introducing the. This is better if we just go through the PowerPoint. All right, so workers' compensation. Now, you will notice in this particular presentation, everything in purple is highlighted. Those are test questions and things that you need to remember. Okay? They are purple and you need to remember this. So workers' compensation provides employees who are injured on the job with compensation and protects employers from liability of their injuries, which basically means that when they get hurt at work, their injuries will be taken care of and they will receive compensation for lost wages if they're off work. So when someone is injured accidentally in the course of performing their job or becomes ill as a result of the environment at their workplace, the cost of medical care for the injury or illness is covered by federal or state plans known as workers' compensation insurance. These plans also provide benefits to cover lost wages and permanent disability. Now, remember what I said? The insurance company is not your friend. They will try to make it seem like it's your fault you got hurt at work. I had a patient long time ago now. He worked at BMW as a mechanic. He was walking down the hallway. The condensation from the air conditioning duct was on the ground. He slipped and fell into a split. So he tore up his knee completely. So by the time he came to me, his knee was as big as a grapefruit. And his insurance company said, well, there's no way that we're going to be responsible for that because you had a tear in your knee 20 years ago. So you just re-aggravated that injury. I wasn't having it because 20 years, that's been healed. This is a brand new injury, and the water and the poor ventilation system caused my patient an injury. So he got his surgery and he got his time off. All right. So, workers' compensation covers two kinds of situations that require medical attention. A traumatic injury is caused by a specific event on a single work day. So it happened on that day at that time. Like I said, when I fell in the hallway, it happened on that day. So that was a traumatic event or a traumatic injury. An example is a broken wrist caused by a fall in the office. It happened that day. Not a week later, not 2 days ago, that day. A non-traumatic injury is also known as an occupational illness or disease, and it is caused by a work environment over a long period of time. And the example is repeated exposure to fumes in the office. So that is an occupational injury. It's something that's happened over time. So you will need to understand the two. Traumatic injury, one day. It happened that day. Occupational illness or injury, it happened over time. So you can still have a musculoskeletal issue that happens over time, such as the gentleman in the video. He said, I have tendonitis. I'm always on my computer. Well, that's a long-term injury. That didn't just happen overnight. So that is an occupational injury. So the federal workers' compensation programs, these are work-related illnesses or injuries suffered by civilian employees of federal agencies. Can you give me an example of a federal agency? Postal. Postal workers are federal. Who else? Come on, come on. No thoughts? All right. Other federal employees consist of postal workers, TSA, which is at the airport, the security workers that wear the blue and they make you go through the metal detectors and warn you down and pat your hair. That's federal. The IRS, they are federal. The CIA, they are federal. So any federal entity is covered under workers' comp. I'm sorry, OWCP. OWCP stands for Office of Workers' Compensation Programs. So there are four federal workers' compensation programs. You have I'm sorry, I need to move y'all. There's the Energy Employees Occupational Illness Compensation Program, the Federal Black Lung Program. We really don't have a lot of the Federal Black Lung programs anymore because that's when we did a lot of mining, the coal mining, the soot and the residue from mining coal. It caused a lot of lung issues, lung damage to people. So they were able to get compensated for that. The Federal Employees Compensation Act program, that's where the majority of your federal workers are covered. Like we said, Postal, TSA, those employees. And longshore and harbor workers compensation program. Longshoremen are those men and women that work overseas off of the rigs. The ones that go and they're gone for 2 weeks, 3 months, they are gone a whole lot. But they do a lot of rigorous work out there, digging for oil, monitoring oil rigs. There are a lot of things that they do, but they're also considered federal. State workers' compensation program. Each state administers its own workers' compensation program and establishes its own rules for compensation. All states must provide two types of workers' compensation benefits: a weekly cash payment for lost wages, payment of healthcare costs related to the injury or occupational illness. So the weekly cash payment is if the patient is taken off of work and they can't go to work at all. There's no modified duty, there's no light duty, they're just going to be at home. So they get a weekly cash payment. Now, is it their whole check? No. It depends on the company because it could be they get 60% of their check. They might get, most of the time it's 60% of their check. They don't get the entire 100, but they get 60%. Now with federal workers comp, it's different. With federal workers comp, you get 73% and 2/3 if you have dependents, or 75. It's 73 or 75. It's some weird arbitrary number. But you get the majority of your check with federal. Now, if you're single with federal, you get 66% and a half. But you still, again, you're getting more than 60% of your check while you're still off and injured. The payment of healthcare costs related to the injury, that means that your job is going to pay for your injury. That insurance is going to pay for your injury. Now, classification of injuries. You have injury without disability. That would be me. I fell, I hurt my butt. Yes, it hurt for a couple of weeks, but I'm not disabled. Temporary disability, that can happen from a car accident and you have stroke-like symptoms because the nerves in your neck from the whiplash have paralyzed your face. Yes, it is very scary, but it's temporary. It's a temporary disability. Permanent disability can lead either to partial or full disability. We had a coach here about 2 years ago. He was on the football field and he was in the line of drive of a tackle. Well, he got laid out pretty good and had a really bad back injury. So he's partially disabled. Not fully, but partially because he did hurt his back pretty bad and he had to have surgery. So his gait is a little altered, but he's doing a lot better. Injury requiring vocational rehabilitation. I'm trying to give you a really good example. So I worked with a lot of postal workers when I worked at the Federal Workers Comp Clinic. And I had truck drivers. When they would get in an accident, they would come to me for their rehab. I had to rehabilitate them back to the point where they could drive a truck, where they could lift up to 70 pounds, where they could control a truck. One of my patients, he was in such a bad wreck that his whole shoulder was ripped off. He had to have surgery. So we had not only had to build his stamina back up, but we also had to rehab his shoulder. And then injury resulting in death. Things do happen while you're at work. My friend unfortunately lost her fiance at a meat packing company. He went in head first to the grinder. All right, verifying workers' compensation insurance. Medical insurance specialists need to verify coverage by contacting the patient's employer and asking for the insurance carrier. Because I guarantee you, you have a patient come in, they're going to say, oh, here's my insurance card, and it's their regular insurance. No, ma'am, you were hurt at work. I know, this is my work insurance. No, ma'am, you were hurt at work. That's why you have to call the employer. Because you will have somebody that argue up and down, well, this is my work insurance. Yes, it is, but that's your health insurance. It's not the coverage that we want. Contact the insurance carrier to see if your doctor is authorized to treat. If your doctor is not in network with that workers' comp insurance, You will not get paid. That's just the bottom line. They don't care. You can see that patient for 2 weeks. You can have bills billed of $2,500. You're going to have to eat that. It's gone. Because you didn't do due diligence by calling to find out if your doctor was eligible to see that patient. Am I losing anybody? Everybody good? All right. So, as with other federal health plans, payment to the physician will be on the same fee schedule as the Medicare fee schedule. And I need to write myself a note to post the fee schedule so you can see what I'm talking about. The physician cannot bill the patient or employer for more than the allowed fee. So whatever Medicare says you get paid, that's what you get paid. They say you get paid $28, well, that's what you get paid. $28. Yeah, I'll bring some because I have some in my contract book. So the first report of injury form, everyone's looks different. You do have one in your workbook, and you can look at it. It's nothing wrong with it. It's the one that you're going to see off of the TWC website. But everyone is different. The one that I had to fill out, and I just took my workers' comp paper home because it was here, but it's on the table. So I'll bring my workers' comp in. For those of you at home, I'll post it for you to see. So everybody's first report of form or first injury report form is different. The whole point of it is you're getting the patient's demographics, so their first name, last name, address, phone number, how to get in contact with them, email address. And then what time the accident happened, where did it happen, and what happened. You're getting the who, what, when, why, where on this first report of injury form. You're getting their supervisor information, and did you have any witnesses? Did anybody else see it? So you're pretty much detailing everything that happened from your point of view, from what you felt, saw, what you remember. That is the first report of injury form. That has to happen after every injury. If you do not have a first injury form, it's really hard to prove if somebody got hurt. Because if they come back a week later, yeah, I fell. I mean, I tripped outside the bus ramp, and my knee kind of hurts. Well, you should have said something that day. You don't wait. Because again, they're gonna say, "Well, are you sure you fell at work? Because did anybody see you? Why didn't you say something?" It's really, really hard to prove those cases and to get them approved. Because you waited so late to say something. I should have moved y'all up right here. This week talking about y'all inside. So again, the first report of injury form, it looks different for everybody, but you are looking for the who, what, why, when, where, and the demographics on the patient. So this is the one that's in your book. You turn to your workbook. And for those of you who are at home, when you come to pick up your coding books, I will give you a student manual. But the one here that you see online is the one that you will see on the TWC website. And it gives you, let's see something. If I could pull up a bigger one over here. I can't remember. Is it a TWC 067? I used to remember these by heart. No, that's not it. Report. Alright, so I'm going to switch over here. Report injury. Okay, so we're all looking at the same thing. So what happens is, again, this is everything that we talked about. On the left side, you'll see the patient's demographics. And on the right is all of the information that is in regards to your injury. When you scroll down, starting at 30, this is all HR information. So they know the date that you were hired, were you hired in Texas or recruited in Texas, how long have you been in service. You can fill most of this out, but HR can give a definite and a better answer for these questions. Why do they have to know your rate of pay? Does anyone know? Yes, because on 36 it asks for the rate of pay of this job. Is it hourly, monthly, or weekly? Why do they need that information? Not necessarily, no, not for you to afford it, but what are they going to pay you? Correct. They're going to be paying you for the days that you missed. So they need to know your rate of pay so they can compensate you based on your pay rate. Because most of the time people get offended when you have to fill this out because they feel that that the employer is being intrusive. But it's like the employer knows how much you make. They hired you. It's in your record. So why are you so mad? Well, I don't know why they need to know all of this. That ain't none of their business. I don't need to. Well, do you want to get paid? Oh, okay. So when you bring it to their attention, when you bring it back around to them and make them realize that, hey, if they don't know how much to pay you, guess what you're gonna get? $0. Now, after all of this is filled out, the claims coordinator, the last paycheck, again, if you go back up to the top, you have the left is your demographics, the right is all of the accident information, and at the bottom is HR. This is all the technical stuff. And if you need to see, I'll put the link in here. I'll put the link in here for you guys to see tomorrow. I usually also give you guys a case study for you to fill it out based on an injury, which I might just give you mine. Because in that way you can see how to fill this out. The thing is, you won't ever have to fill this out, but you need to know what it looks like. But I make you fill it out because what if you go work in HR in the workers' comp claim? Then you be like, oh, I know how to fill that out, or I know what that is. You will never fill this out. Why? Who's supposed to fill it out? Correct. The person who gets hurt is supposed to fill it out. So you shouldn't be doing this. They should have done this already at work. They should have already reported it because if they bring this to you, that means that there's a high chance you're not getting paid. You have no claim number. You have no insurance information. You just know they got hurt. That's it. So this form you should never fill out or have to fill out unless you work in HR. But if you are a billing coding specialist, if they bring you a copy, cool. But you shouldn't have to fill it out. Because if you do, you're not getting paid. I'm just going to tell you. Just be real. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, it is 12:57, so we're going to stop right here. And on tomorrow, we will pick back up. I will email everyone like I did earlier today when we go back live. So thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you tomorrow if you are available. The recording will be posted later on this afternoon. See y'all soon.